Hey, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Event Driven Podcast. It's a podcast delivered to event professionals who want to master different metrics that matter in their business. And we want to bring real world stories from professionals like florists and caterers and industry experts who can share their secrets on really growing their business and transform their business. And one of those experts we're super excited today to have is Rachel Gang from Helen, Olivia. We're super excited to have you here, Rachel.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. It's always fun to connect with other industry friends.
As we were chatting the other day, it came up to my mind like how unique of a business model that you all have. And for us, we're just really excited to kind of share like different perspectives. One of the topics for today for us is to chat about revenue streams and looking at kind of the breakdown within your company of where your different revenues coming from and the decisions that are involved in that. My wife and I, we owned a wedding and event flower studio, and that's all we did. We didn't do e-commerce. We didn't do Valentine's Day. We didn't partner with corporate. We just solely did weddings. And for us, you live or you die on that, right? Like it's kind of a question. So
For sure.
your story was incredible. And I would love to tell you, could you tell us a little bit about Helen and Olivia? Tell us a little bit about your story, how you got into the topic that we're talking about today.
Yeah. So my husband and I have owned Helen Olivia for a little over 10 years, and we're a Washington, D.C. based studio right outside of D.C. in a little town called Alexandria. We're about 2 miles outside of D.C. We bought 10 years ago, and when we bought the shop, it was in a quaint, historic, very affluent part of DC that did a lot of walk in retail, like brick and mortar style of floral work. And the studio had a couple of corporate clients, but not a ton, and dabbled in weddings, but again, not a ton. The studio did in the high six figures, so like right under $1 million a year. So still a good volume, but we have since kind of grown in many different areas. We have really grown in the corporate space in particular. I think very early on, we got a taste of corporate work and realized that it was really easy. So, and easy in the sense that you're working with really short turnaround times. So oftentimes your clients are calling you with 2 days notice, 5 days notice, 2 weeks notice. So, you're not dealing with somebody for months and months and months on end. We also find that our corporate clients, they definitely want good looking floral, but they're not so emotionally attached to their floral like brides are. So it's a lot easier from the planning back end process. And we realized also that our corporate clients were repeat clients. And that was really a cool thing for us to realize as business owners. Like, hey, if we get one good client and they book us 20 times a year, like that's a hell of a lot better than, working with just one bride. So we developed relationships with caterers in DC. Caterers have been huge for the growth of our business. They will book us, one company might book us 20 times a week. And then hotels, universities, embassies, all of these are repeat residual business. And I know for us, it's unique being in DC. It's a city unlike many others and unlike any other in the country. But we have been very, very lucky to grow that side of our business.
That's super, super cool. And you all, I'm sure, took a kind of a long road to get there. My wife and I, we had started our own company, so I don't have a lot of experience acquiring. We acquired other software companies in my role in the software and curate, but not necessarily as a small business owner. When we were a design company, like what went into that decision for you all? When you looked at the books in that process of acquiring Helen Olivia, like what was that kind of those initial first days? What did those look like for you all?
Well, I should add, my husband and I worked together running a pretty large event company in DC for 4 or 5 years beforehand. And during that time, I had grown into the general manager role. He had grown into the sales manager role. So we were really hands on running somebody else's
Mm,
business, which, for anyone who's thinking about jumping into business ownership, if you have the opportunity to run somebody else's business and figure it out and make mistakes on their dime, like that's absolutely the way to do it. So we were very, very lucky to have, a couple years under our belts. We looked at buying that business, but for one reason or another, it wasn't going to work out. And so we started searching for other businesses to buy. Helen Olivia kind of just fell into our lap. We saw the listing and we were immediately like, yes, this makes sense. my husband felt like he could have, the business to manage, and I liked the idea that it was a little bit creative. The numbers made sense. It was cash flow positive. The owners that we bought from ran a really tight, clean business with, not taking on debt and meeting all of their responsibilities. So we felt like we were, starting out with a good paycheck on day one. And, we never in a million years thought that we would grow to the size that we've grown to. But, we started with such a good foundation and good brand recognition in DC.
Mm,
We, obviously part of what we paid for was just a really good, loyal customer base.
right. You know, that's phenomenal when you have that opportunity to find a local business that you can be able to kind of take to the next level. I've just so enjoyed seeing your story over the years. When you initially acquired the company, was it really heavy on the retail side? Did they do a lot of events? Did they do a lot of corporate? What did those revenue streams look like for Helen Olivia when you first acquired the company?
Sure. So when we first bought the business, we, with our accountant, did an audit of the books and we had a pretty good handle on what the revenue streams were. I would say between 5 to 10% was workshop revenue, and that has been consistent as we've scaled, where we probably hover around 5% workshop revenue now. They did, I would guess, maybe 10 to 15% corporate. And then the rest of that was either e-commerce or, walk-in or phone-in retail orders or very small events. So, somebody's hosting a baby shower in their backyard type of event. They had a handful of larger corporate clients, but not a ton of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I guess there's so many stories here, so don't feel bad about jumping into any of these stories because I love hearing your story and learning more. At, at what points do you all see kind of like opportunities in different it sounds like the workshops has just stayed consistent, but those
Yeah.
other different revenue streams have probably gone up, down, if you start in 2012 and you go through COVID, you're post-COVID, you got all these different changes. What were what were those times that you knew that it was the right time to grow or maybe to shrink in different areas of the company?
So we have not really experienced a shrinking. We are starting to have conversations about what it looks like to shrink or scale back in certain areas. So that's on the horizon for us. But we have definitely seen big growth in certain areas. Um, Corporate has just been a big boom for us. So year over year, corporate is really a profit center for our business and is really what keeps the lights on around here. And when I say corporate, within the corporate umbrella for Helen Olivia is lobby contracts and hotel contracts. So we have subscriptions, so to speak, of people who are getting arrangements every single Monday, every single Friday.
Mm,
Corporate gifting also falls under that umbrella. We have real estate brokerages who every single time they meet with a client, they are sending an arrangement. We have
interesting.
yeah, we do floral concierge services. So we have a couple of really big law firm clients in DC who, may need to send flowers to Hong Kong one day or to a small town in Alabama. And we facilitate that and we bill for that. We've got the DC sports teams also take advantage of that service. What else? We do corporate events, we do corporate team building. Believe it or not, floral workshops are really successful going downtown into the offices, like Employee Appreciation Week. We are booked
That's
solid.
cool.
So, yeah, corporate has grown and grown and grown. We do tiny corporate events that might be 5 bud vases and a single buffet arrangement on a Tuesday, all the way up to, big political fundraisers in DC that may be 150.
Hmm.
So it runs the gamut. A lot of that corporate business comes through our caterers who are referring their clients to us through
Okay.
hotels, venues. So it's all word of mouth. We do no advertising as a business. It's just word of mouth, being really easy to work with are like one of the pillars of our business. And we, tell this to every single person we hire is we want to be kind and be easy to work with. And that has carried our business really, really far over the years.
So you just listed off this is so cool because you listed off like 6 different, like, by themselves, they're their own concept,
Yeah.
of a kind of a revenue stream, and
Yeah.
so do you all I guess let me start because 'cause I'm trying to go through the list in my mind. Floral subscriptions, do you all break that out between does it fall under corporate if it's for a personal floral subscription? Do y'all do personal floral subscription,
Yeah.
or is that primarily, like, corporate subscriptions?
So I would say a corporate subscription is a lobby. So, a reception desk
Okay.
arrangement. Some of our corporate clients are ordering, like I have one very large company that's ordering 5 pieces at $300 a pop every single Monday. So that's
Wow.
like it's great business for us on Mondays to know that before 10 a.m. we're already pushing out the door, the equivalent of a large wedding.
Right.
Um, I would consider anyone who's getting a lobby arrangement to be under the corporate subscription umbrella. And then we have, I don't know, I'd have to count, but a whole lot of private home subscriptions. So that's going to be somebody who signs up for a weekly, biweekly, monthly, or quarterly subscription to their home. So, a husband who's gifting a year's worth of flowers to his wife, or we actually have a lot of folks who send subscriptions to retirement communities. That's been really good
Hmm.
to us. So, flowers for grandma. So, those I wouldn't put under the corporate umbrella, but still a subscription.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, I'm sure every single one of these kind of has a story to it, right? Like, hey, how did we get into this side of it? But what I love about what you've described is so many people in the event world, it's easy to get focused, like my wife and I did, on one particular area, and we loved it. Did love that area, but our core reasoning for becoming, starting our own company was to have the freedom and flexibility to own our own company, to make our own schedules, and everything that you're describing, it falls under this realm of like, it sounds like you all have a wonderful business. You have maybe still some walk-in traffic, but that wasn't kind of our direction. We love this
Yeah.
concept of an event-driven company, but it sounds. I mean, the things that you're describing are things that we also could have done. So tell me about, like, how did you? Let's start with maybe the lobby. Like, what was that? Those first few. What did those look like? What seemed to open up the door to more of those lobby arrangements, like the example you gave, like you have one great client who's doing $1,500 a week,
Yeah.
and you're taking care of all of that legwork for them.
Yeah. Well, we started off really small. A lot of it, again, was word of mouth. So when we first bought the shop, we had, I think, two or three lobby clients. One of them, we still laugh about this. They're no longer a client, but it was a sex shop, was one of the lobby clients that we inherited. And we used to do like corset wrapped ribbon, and like it was really ridiculous. So we had a handful of lobby clients, and it started growing because we delivered good looking lobby arrangements. And the other two clients were in high rise buildings. And so folks who
Hmm.
had suites would ask for business cards.
Okay.
And so we picked up another couple of lobby contracts in those buildings, and then it kind of grew from there. So, yeah, a lot of word of mouth. Every time we land a new corporate lobby client or any type of corporate client, we like to give them like a one-page tear sheet from Canva that says, hey, these are the services we offer to our corporate clients. And that's something that has been really great for us, is having at the ready like marketing material to just email over to
Mhm.
someone. Hey, did you know we have floral concierge service where you can order flowers around the world? Did you know that we do client gifting here in DC? Did you know that we do on-site events? And that's turned into more and more bookings.
That's really awesome. What about workshops? So, like the corporate workshops, when you're, we've done this at Curate. We've had our team, like one of the team building activities was just like doing a floral workshop. And
Yeah.
there's particular team members who enjoy more full arrangements than others. Let me say it that
Yeah.
way. But i.e., they have a $300 bouquet when everybody's supposed
Yeah.
to have $80 bouquets. But
Fun.
we have a great time. We had a great time doing it. Like,
Yeah.
how did that grow out of your workshop business? Like, how has that evolved through kind of the years of this corporate side?
Yeah. So earlier you asked me if there was an area that we're scaling back, and I said we're thinking about it. Workshops, that's not true. We are scaling back our workshop program. The workshop program is the one part of our business where we get so many requests and so many inquiries that we just cannot keep up. So uh,
Hmm.
we, I think, started doing workshops before they were cool. So I have to give all the
Got
credit
it.
to the owner of Helen, Olivia. She had a weekly workshop program that had a wait list out the wazoo. She had a sign up book. It was in a spiral notebook, and it used to make me crazy because it was like scratched out highlight marks everywhere. But there was, a list of 30 or 40 people on the wait list for every single class. It was crazy. So we've continued with the workshop program. They sell out every time. And, we get just an enormous number of requests for private workshops in studio. And then a lot of people want offsite workshops. So at their home, in their office, we probably get, I don't know, 100 or 200 workshop inquiries a year that we don't have the bandwidth
Sure.
to. So we try to reserve the on-site workshops for our good regular corporate clients.
That makes sense. One that I found really, really interesting is, you're building partnerships with people who are already finding weddings and events. My wife and I, we spent a lot of time building together like our SEO, right? And so that was kind of our marketing thing, and worked great. Like we did spend a lot of time getting on one of the front pages, but that was how we got more clients. But all of them, to your point, were clients who came and we really enjoyed working with them. But it was the only time we ever were going to work with that client, unless there was a whole bunch of siblings that were going to be
Yeah,
coming, in the next few years.
sometimes that
And
happens. Yes.
it's true. It's true. And you're having to pull up the old proposal uncurate all the time. We're like, all right, let's go find this old proposal and let's try to remember all what we did previously. Um, but what you said was really interesting, which was you've started to build relationships with caterers who are doing all sorts of events. They're already finding these weddings and events that need someone to
Yeah.
do the work for them. What has that looked like? How has that grown? How did that start?
Yeah. So when we bought the shop, we had one catering company that worked with the shop, and we still work with that catering company all the time. I think we did 7 or 8 events for them this week. So they're really good partners for our business. The caterers, if you're in a major metro area, are, such a wonderful, person to partner with. They have all of the clients, they do all of the heavy lifting for you. In our city at least, they function a lot like a wedding or an event planner, but just with more clients. They are easy to work with. It feels like an extension of our own business when we work with them because we work so frequently with these people. And the booking process usually is as simple as just firing off a quick email saying, hey, team Helen, Olivia, we've got 19 tables at Portrait Gallery tomorrow night, or not tomorrow night, hopefully not tomorrow night, but 2 weeks from now. And, we've got green linen and ghost chairs, and load is 3 p.m. We'll see you then. So it's really easy working with them, effortless.
That's really cool, and because again, so many times like these, I've been on so many calls like this where those relationships have really mattered. Where you kind of be able to like have conversations, build those relationships, find those opportunities. How many caterers would you say, on the average month or year, that you all work with in that kind of relationship?
So we've got 4 that we work with regularly, meaning like at least once or twice a week. Some of them, on a busy week, we might be working with 10 plus times. And then we've got another probably 3 or 4 caterers that use us at least a couple times a month. And that's, the same with the hotels and country clubs in the area.
Mhm. That makes sense. And then in terms of the flow of that, like the expectations there, do the caterers, do they charge a particular amount and then they take a portion of that and they allocate that to their costing, which is what they turn and pay you? What does that flow look like? Even though you're not working with that end client, if someone were to get into this, what would the expectation of that flow look like for them?
Yeah. Well, I can give Curate a big plug here because we use Curate a lot in this process. So, 50% of the time, the clients don't care to see a vision board or, proposal beforehand. But some of the time they do. So a caterer will put an inquiry through, we'll type the Curate proposal. Oftentimes we're using the function where we can send a proposal without showing pricing. We use that all the
Mm,
time. So when we're
okay.
working with a caterer or a hotel, we are exporting a PDF of a proposal with no pricing, sending it off to the end client for approval or for edits. Most of the caterers are paying, actually, all of the caterers and hotels are paying us full price, and then they are marking up to their client. So,
Right.
the way that I would look at this is the same way that a wedding or event planner is charging a design fee or,
Hmm.
their rates. The caterers are kind of doing the same thing in major metro areas. So they are, billing a 20% or 30% commission on booking of the floral. So it doesn't eat into our profit margins at all. It's just like a regular person. We're booking flowers.
Yeah, I love that. And so in that relationship, there's what I'm hearing is, you typically will, leave any pricing conversation between the caterer and the client. If you're doing a vision board or something like that, you're just kind of using the settings. There's two or three ways to get prices removed in Curate, but you're using either the link without prices or the sections where you're hiding the prices. And but in the end, that your customer is that caterer, and they're the
Yeah,
person who's going to pay you.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I I'm super curious around the flow of payments. Do they pay the same that a client would pay? Are there kind of unique terms? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. So the one significant thing that we learned very early on with corporate, and actually the old owners cautioned us, they said, because they knew we came from a corporate events background, they said, if you're going to do this, you need to be ready to float, accounts receivable, you know, for these clients. And some of the clients, if you're lucky enough to get big events, it's, a big amount of money that you're floating. So
Sure.
corporate seldom pays on time. Maybe 25% of our corporate clients are paying before the event, which if you're a wedding florist listening to this, you're probably screaming at your computer like, no way, I would never do this. But it's just industry standard in corporate. I would never allow a private client or, Joe Schmo calling me for their kids, graduation party to not pay in full. But these larger corporate clients, the hotels, Fortune 500 companies, they are paying you net 30, net 60. So you have to
Mhm.
be able to float on an ongoing basis.
Do
So for
you
us, when we look at our books at the end of the year, we keep capital in our business to do this.
cover that? Right. Well, everybody else does too. I hear the same story with florists who are like, your taxes or whatever. They're like, hey, if I've charged you already, I'm going to go ahead and pull a chunk out because I don't want to
Yeah.
mess up there. That
Yeah.
same conversation here. My wife and I in our business, we always had a primary account and then we had the secondary account. We would just pull money out and stick it in the secondary account
Yeah.
for situations like this where you
Yeah.
have it. What does a conversation look like with a caterer when a caterer says, "Hey, we want to do this"? Do you set those terms up front? Do you say, "Hey, we're going to do net 30 terms," or what does that look like in that kind of the nuts and bolts conversation that you have when you're opening up a different revenue stream like this?
Yeah. So it's definitely a conversation that we'll have. A lot of it is just like kind of going with your gut instinct. We've had clients over the years who have sketched us out a little bit or don't look like they're very well established. And, we've asked them or we've insisted that they mail a check beforehand. We can always do that.
Hmm.
It's at our discretion and at our level of comfort. So, there have definitely been times that we've put our foot down or after a conversation felt not good and we've insisted on a credit card beforehand or a check to be mailed. But for most of our clients who are paying net 30, net 60, they will tell you their terms very clearly. A lot of times, they connect us with their accounting departments and they can give you a payroll schedule. You just have a level of comfort, and when you're dealing with a large household name company, they're good for it.
Right.
Nordstrom's is not tipping you on the bill.
Yeah, I was debating whether or not I should bring up the story, and so generally that the answer should be no, but I'm going to do it anyways. There's
Let's
another florist that I've talked with that was on there. There was almost like a national situation. Like Spotify was literally doing a story about this event scammer, right? They were this caterer, and they were doing this. They were specifically in this accounts payable side of things. They were kind of paying, but they weren't fully paying, and it was kind of like this weird process. So what I'm hearing you're saying is the companies you can trust are going to have process in place. They're
right.
going to, they're not going to be like, yeah, we'll get it to you. Like you're going to see the signs that, hey, they've got a process, they've got a department that handles this. Anything else like on your side that when you're trying to avoid getting in a situation where someone's asking you for product, but they haven't been that great on their bills. How do you like what other clues do you think of and hear of whenever you're trying to process, especially for this new florist out, the florist who's listening to this saying, "Hey, maybe I should open this up." What should they be looking for to make sure that this company is a great and sound company?
Yeah, I mean, always have clients sign your contract. So if, God forbid, something goes wrong, you can fall back on a
Hmm.
contract. And, you know, I I would say in DC at least, we're all pretty friendly, all of the florists who operate in this
Sure.
area and in space. And there's probably five of us who compete for the corporate work most commonly. And, I'm lucky, I'm knocking on wood right now. I have never been burned by a corporate account in 10
That's
years.
incredible.
I've been burned by individual people, but not by corporate. I would say we all look out for each other. If somebody ever were to burn me, I would, send out an email to everybody else saying, like, hey, steer clear of this guy. This is not good. So, yeah, we've been really lucky over the years. And I guess
It's
you
really
just
powerful.
operating this way. I think if you're not used to working in the corporate space, you'd probably, have a lot of anxiety. Just somebody that they're going to mail you a check 30 days from now. But for us, it's very normal.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and we do hear that. We've got customers of ours who do work for Netflix. They're doing work for
Yeah.
large companies, and you're having to deal with accounting departments and that flows. So it makes a lot of sense that you're building these relationships and growing these sides of your business as the opportunity presents itself. So that makes sense on in terms of the catering relationship, how to be able to build those. Is do you have a couple stories about how more of those relationships have opened up? Was it just an introduction from another catering company, or did they reach out to you directly? Like, how have those relationships, how have they opened up over the course of the years?
Well, a lot of times we've just been on site with catering companies and, we always try to be friendly, say hello. One of the best things actually that we ever did for our business, we have an awesome operations manager whose job it is to confirm events the week of the event. And if you're not doing this, you should be doing this because it is like just such a customer friendly way to operate. So every single event that is within 72 hours of the event date, we are sending an email out to the caterer or the hotel or whatever, introducing ourselves, what time we'll be there. Do you have a preferred, loading dock or a door that we're to come through, confirming that our loadout time is 11 p.m. If you need us, this is the manager on duty for the night. This is a cell phone number, and your crew lead is X person. And I've heard over and over again that the catering companies and hotels are just blown away by this. Nobody else is
That's
doing it.
cool.
Crazy to me that nobody else is doing it. But, I think if you have a great team, you run a tight ship on site, you're easy to work with, the bookings just come. Like these catering companies want to work with you, and you deliver a good product.
So one of the areas I want to dive back into that I think is a really great place for us to kind of wrap up the call is around pulling back on areas of the business. You have listed off this huge list of places, and I don't know how you keep up with it all, but you've got all this list of places that you're engaging and offering services. But at some point, it sounds like there are kind of pros and cons around different revenue streams and what are we making off of it. But then the flip side of that is like, hey, what impact does it have on our brand and who we are as a company?
Yeah.
Like, what are those decisions that go in that are currently going into that workshop conversation about? It doesn't sound like you're eliminating it, but you're asking that question of like, do we need to pull this back a little?
Yeah. Well, I just want to address one thing. You said you don't know how I do it. I want to give credit to my team. We have a full-time team of 15 or so people who are year-round employees and who are incredibly dedicated and talented, and that's how we do it. It is definitely not just me running Helen Olivia, and also a really great network of freelancers that we use regularly. So we're lucky in that respect. And it took a long time to cultivate and grow
Sure.
that team. So how do I know when it's time to scale back in an area? Well, a couple of different factors. When it starts to feel painful to do something is usually like
Mm,
the big sign. And I hired a business coach last year who really opened my eyes, in this area in particular. She's like, what are the things that you just hate doing or that take a lot of time for you to do? And so we've been able to identify, a couple of those. It also, if you look at like the cost benefit analysis, I guess, of doing certain things like workshops, for example, we have a great studio. We moved into this studio space 5 years ago. It's huge. We have a dedicated workshop room in our studio, but the workshop room is also where we do a lot of our like receiving drops. So when our wholesalers drop 1,000 boxes, it's coming into our workshop room. And we've decided that the agony of moving all the boxes, cleaning all the boxes, setting for workshop is too much sometimes. So, we're having conversations right now about how frequently we want to do workshops. So instead of weekly, maybe we're going to scale to biweekly and we're going to take half of
hmm
them. So, we've started having those conversations, but usually it's just when somebody on our team says that they feel stretched too thin in that area, or it starts to feel like a pain rather than an exciting thing. That's when those conversations start to occur.
I love how principled that answer was. It's there's so many different. I'm a big metrics guy, so I'm like, well, I want this data and that data, but I love
Yeah.
how simple that is to be able to say when it starts to feel painful, and
Yeah.
I think that's a it's kind of one of those hard emotional things as a whole because you may love something and it may mean a lot to you, but I still remember back when my wife and I were looking at selling our company. We had just found out that she had Crohn's. We
Oh,
were
sorry.
going through a lot of like medical situations and things like that, and we realized like we it's hard, but we couldn't keep up with it at that
Yeah.
point. And I think that's a very principled answer in something that is really strong as people are always considering. It's so easy for us to just say, oh, I'll add something else to my plate, I'll add something else to my plate, but at some point the plate's full. You
Yeah.
can't add anything else to it.
Yeah. And for us, like the big thing that we focus on, and we have weekly staff meetings, and this is how we start every single staff meeting is like, are we maintaining our standards of excellence? And that's something that's been
Hmm.
really at the center of our brand all of these years. And we're fanatical about if we're going to do something, we are going to do it, as close to perfection as we can do. And, if we feel like we're not able to execute on that level, then we're just not going to do it. So even though we have all of these revenue streams and all of these different, channels to our business, we really have focused on growing in a way that we're able to maintain our quality.
That's phenomenal. Well, thank you for coming on the show. You have blown my mind with all the different unique paths of revenue and approaches that you have to this industry. And I'm excited to continue cheering from the sidelines.
Thanks so much. Fun to chat with you.
Talk to you later, Rachel.